All right.
Natasha.
Natasha. Natalie, I kept trying to figure out, should I call her Nat or Natasha or Natalie? Anyway, when I met you a while back, we met you at Carter night. Now, Carter has had a little issue with you.
He
okay, and I
has?
feel like we need to confront that right up front.
Okay.
And the reason why is you were getting his 12-pound weights all the time at the gym.
Oh, no.
Okay, and but he's finally had to move up to 15.
Okay, good.
Okay, but he was watching pretty hard. She's that little skinny girl got my weights again. You know, I kid him all the time about it.
It's funny you say that because I always think about, because I always take him to the other room.
Right.
And I always say to myself, am I taking them for someone? And then I think, well, no, I'm the only one who uses 12. Everyone's way above me, so it'll be probably fine.
That'll make him feel better, too. I'll tell him that. But we laugh at him all the time. We kid him. But I met you a while back. Very interesting. I was thinking about your story and the things that you've done. One thing that's interesting, I think about the cooking.
Yep.
Okay. Now I'm a short order cook. Okay, hamburger, hot dogs. But you're not that type of cook.
I think I'm all kinds of cook. I think I span the whole spectrum, I feel like.
Right. Well, what type of cooking do you enjoy?
I enjoy kind of everything. You know, for me, it's more about why I'm cooking and the process of it.
Right.
It's less important probably what I'm cooking for me, but I like to cook anything from elaborate, kind of fancy, beautiful-looking things to burgers and shish kebabs and anything on the grill. Or I would even love to cook something on a campfire when you go camping and cook literally on a piece of stone or a piece of metal, and I would enjoy that just as much. So for me, the food is more of it's a connective tissue, something that brings people together, family, friends. So to me, it's more I think when I'm cooking for a group of people, more about doing that for other people, bringing people together. And when I cook alone or, before guests arrive, it's, to me, a creative outlet, a way for me to, de-stress, focus on one thing, and just, be myself without any other distractions.
Right. For me, cooking, I have a feeling of completion. What I've been doing forever, for over 40 years with television, it's never finished. Okay, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and nothing's ever, you say, okay, it's all done, we can go home now. It never happens. But when I started cooking and doing so, and we had restaurants for years and things like that, but I didn't do a lot of cooking at the restaurants. But I mean, when I started cooking after the pandemic's what started me cooking. I had a guy that I watched, and we called him Drunk Steve on YouTube. And he would drink a few beers and cook a little, drink a few beers and cook a little. And I thought, I believe I can do that.
I could do
that. Because he would just throw like a little bit of beef in a pot, and some carrots, and he'd cut them up, and he'd have them over a Coleman. And I said, I think I can cook that. And then I started going to the grocery store, because I didn't go to the grocery store ever. My wife went to the grocery store. I never went to the grocery store. Now I go all the time. You know what I mean? There's not many days.
Sometimes I get my inspiration like that. I don't come necessarily with the set plan. I say, let me go, I'll see what's there, what looks good that day, and then it kind of comes together in my head.
Yeah. I do. I go and look, and I think about it, and then if I see something on sale, I take it back and put it in the freezer. But I've been wanting to try, I've done no turkey burgers and none of that kind of thing, but I've seen these turkey chops. Look like pork chops, but they're turkey. They're big pieces of turkey. And I thought, I've been thinking about giving that a shot. I hate to stray from beef or chicken, because that's a real distant place for me when I come away from beef or chicken. But I think I might try the turkey chops a little bit. And I do the pork chops some. I do those a lot.
Do you like fish?
Not I'm just not real big.
Okay.
I like my fish from McDonald's Square.
Okay.
With a shot of tartar sauce and a half a piece of cheese.
Well, I'll have to make
ground
you some
up.
Fish.
It just sort of, I don't know. I look at it and I think about it, and sometimes Janice will talk to me about cooking salmon or something like that, and I believe I could do it.
Yeah.
But I just haven't really got the whole end of that thing. I know you've been in restaurant business like me. We've done some things. Yep. It is a really hectic business.
Very hectic.
And very hectic. I wouldn't want to be in it now.
Yeah, it's tough. I heard somewhere it's one of the, I think, top 5 I heard somewhere someone asked, which business would you not get into? And the list,
Right.
He's an entrepreneur, successful. He gave, here's the top 5, and restaurant was number 1 because they have the highest failure rate.
Right.
And that's in large towns. But overall, I mean, I think here with staffing and like you were saying, it's a 24/7, 7 days a week. It's when you're alone doing it, it's very hard. It's a very difficult business. It can be rewarding and there's a lot of positives about it, but very difficult.
Yeah. I always wanted I'd like to have a hot dog cart if I'd done anything. So you could bring it back, be done. You know what I mean? Park it in the garage, put your hot dogs back in the freezer, and you're sort of okay with it. It's not like you got rent and these utilities and this going on and all that.
Well, we need to do that because I make a pretty mean chili for chili dogs. So
that's. I'm telling you, I've thought about it 2 or 3 times, and I look at them all the time on Facebook Marketplace. I'm always looking at them, saying, I tell you what, how much is that? And I get to looking at them. I think about that a lot because people buy hot dogs.
Yep.
I mean, in spite of everything, they do.
They do. It's easy. It's quick. It's one of those things that doesn't take a lot of time. Once you've got the chili made, it's pretty much easy.
What were some of the challenges you found in restaurant business?
I would say one of the biggest challenges was staff. Probably the number one challenge was staff. And I think it's probably true of, doesn't matter if you're in a big, small city, I think it's probably always a challenge, but I think especially in a small town, and I'm not from here, as you know, it's just the quantity of applicants. So when you lose one, to replace that one, you don't have a lineup of 100 people knocking on your door trying to, get that job. Whereas in a large city, you can hire people every single day. Here, it's just the quantity and quality. I mean, for me, quality was very important too. So those would be probably number one. And then it's just physically very demanding.
Right.
It's never ending. It's nonstop. And I think again, in a small town, it's difficult to get your word out. And I think here it's about community, who you know. People need to trust you. If they go where they know what they like, and if they like or don't like the proprietor, they may not go. Whereas, again, in a big town, that never factors in, right? In a smaller town, it does. So I think but really, it's the staff, and just for me personally, I was doing it all alone. Like I literally did. You name a job in the restaurant, and I would have done it. Yeah, from washing the dishes and the floors to cooking the food on the line when my cook didn't show up, to serving the tables, bartending, ordering the food, running to Sam's. I mean, all of it, you name it, I done it, and I learned it all on my own, really. I'm here by myself, so that was tough.
And that's the truth. When you look at nowadays, when we talk about food cost and we talk about labor and talk about when we had restaurants, we had 8 at one time, and it can get away from you in a minute. Okay, one of the things we done, and people laughed at me for it, but every week, if whatever my rent was, okay, if my rent was $1,000, every week I'd put $250 back for rent. Every week I would pick this for utilities. I would put this money back, so I didn't get at the end of the month and wonder why I was broke.
Right.
Okay, because in the restaurant business, it could eat you up. In just a few minutes, you would say, "What in the world has happened to me?" And then, as you're sharing, if you don't have somebody at quality help, somebody that really wants it to work, they can cost you so much money.
Well, they're costing money, and their time is money as well. And so what I found, because of the staffing issues, because instead of taking a step, I would have loved to take a step back and work on the business side of things. As much as I love the front, and I like to cook and all of that, and I would meet all the customers and all of that, and I enjoyed that a lot, I think. But at the end of the day, it's a business. No matter what it is, it's a business, and there are certain things you need to do for the business to improve, to make progress. And so I found that I had no time for that because I was doing everything else. And that fell to the bottom of the list because you know, like there was just no time. So, you know, if I'm in the kitchen cooking, if I'm prepping, if I'm serving the tables, if I'm cleaning, if I'm doing, because I can't rely on my staff, or because I'm constantly having to fire or hire new people, interview, then I'm doing all those things and I'm not really managing the business the way I want to manage it. And that was a big issue too for me.
Well, you're really not managing the business when you do that.
You're reacting. You can't be proactive.
You're doing the mechanics constantly. And then there's another thing that happens to be the cash register. Okay, if you can't, you know, some of the most prosperous people I've found in the restaurant business was the owner was standing at the cash register. Okay, I mean, you know, and you know, and you can, because it's real. It's just real, and a little bit of theft means a lot.
Sure.
If you're running a 10% bottom line.
Right.
Okay.
Your margins are
and
small.
somebody
You
scalps you for $10 or $20, you got to do another $100 to make up for that.
Right.
And it's real. It really is. That's a real. And the food business, and you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
But you get into that end of it where you got to handle the mechanics. Wouldn't it be something if you worked in a restaurant and you didn't have to worry about all that?
Yeah.
You could just drop out and make the beautiful plates, pass them back out, you know, and go from there. And you know, my wife we worked for McDonald's for years. She was with them almost 10 years, and I was with them 7 or 8 years. And they were really good to us. Yeah. And I've said before, when people can get involved in fast food, if you can get up, I mean, the pay was good. It's better than what people were thinking. Yeah. I mean, we had a company car, we had stock, we had, I mean, it was a good job for us. It really paid us good. And we could go home at night. You know, I mean, still had to think about things some, but there was a limited amount, not like owning your own business. Right. You know, it takes a different creature to own your own business.
It's hard. I mean, it's one of the toughest. I mean, it's again, it's very rewarding, but it's also very difficult. So I think, you know, I have that entrepreneurial spirit, and I enjoyed a lot of things about having my own business. You know, one of it was actually, as much as the staff was an issue, I also found kind of some pleasure and a reward for myself and having almost somebody to take care of, like a group of people that, because I had some great employees too. I mean, I really did. And to me, I really enjoyed kind of being that, you know, mom more or less for some of these kids who maybe didn't grow up with the best kind of examples, or maybe they did, but they turned out to be great kids. And I kind of just enjoyed having that team and being like in charge of a team. And I wish I could have, you know, made that work more, because I did enjoy that piece of it.
Yeah, that is a big deal.
Like when you find someone great, you're like, oh, I want to hold on to this person, because, you know, and I really enjoyed that. So
yeah, we used to bring people to the house for Christmas. We'd have Christmas dinner at the house, you know, and everybody that worked for us would come in, and I still got pictures. We look back on that. Pictures and things like that, and think about people that, and still got friends that I interviewed a young lady that worked for me when she was probably 15 the other day. And it's been a long time ago, okay? And she'd worked for me and talked about what that first job meant to her. And I don't know, I think about that a lot, but it's good. But it's a tough business.
It's tough. I mean, any business is tough, but I think that one especially is tough, because it's just nonstop.
Yeah.
So,
you know, I see people that you know, I know you've seen them too. We see people that sit up at fairs and stuff like that. You know, and it's pretty good, but sometimes that looks like a lonely world. I mean, when they're sitting there and there's nobody coming up to the window, and I'm thinking the whole time when I see them, I'm thinking, well, hold on, they paid $1,000 for this spot. Okay, and I know they've got food back there in the freezer. You know, and several things I want, but the lemonade business always looked like something cool to me. You know, you see them people drop that lemonade out, and you know, I'm thinking, what do they got, okay? They got 5 gallons of water, some sugar, right? Squeeze out a few lemonades. I mean, $5. I mean,
well, you got to sell a lot of lemonade.
I don't know.
To survive on that, but yeah.
When I see them backed up when they have the county fair out here, I mean, people, the only thing keeps them from doing more is they just can't wait on them fast enough. I'm thinking, man, alive. And then I see them people take them little horse trailers and turn them into little different kind of lemonade stuff and all that.
Hey, a hot dog stand's not, you know, that far from that lemonade.
Yeah, it really is close. I think about it a lot, you know, then laziness takes over, and I think, no, I don't know. I sort of, man, I'll tell you, I went to the Y this morning.
I did not go today.
Yeah, you're very smart.
Well, today is my off day. I do take 1 or 2 days off. Well, I still worked out where I was, but no.
Yeah.
But today was my off day, so
Minus
I did
14
not.
degrees.
But I did go this weekend, and I was one of literally, I
Okay.
could count on two fingers how many people were there this weekend.
Gee.
But I went both days. It's
Gee.
cold in there, and I'm
man.
never cold in
Yeah,
there,
it
never.
was 14 degree, minus
Yeah.
14 degrees this morning when I went in. And because I don't take my gloves off anymore because
Yeah.
my hands get so
Yeah.
cold, and I'm thinking, man, I'm just not taking my gloves off. I'm going on like I go, but it's a, gee whiz. It's
It's
well,
cold
all right,
in there.
Let's talk about growing up.
Okay, sure.
What planet are you from? Where do you come from?
So
I mean,
I was born, so I'm an immigrant to this country, and I was born in the former Soviet Union. And well, back then in the early 70s when I was born, it was the Soviet Union, and then my family, when I was about, so late, I guess it was 1979, my parents decided to immigrate to America. So at that time, it was kind of one of the first waves of large immigration into the United States out of Soviet Union at the time. And so we immigrated to Chicago. At the time was my parents, who were at that time, my mom was in her 30s, my dad was in his 40s, 2 kids. I was 6 and a half, my sister was 10 and a half. So 2 kids,
right.
probably not more than 2 or 3 suitcases,
Right.
sell what you got, take a few things that you can take. And back then, it's not like today where you just get on an airplane and 10 hours later
Right.
you've immigrated.
Right.
Back then it was a whole process.
Okay.
And it took us, I think we left in November of 1973, and we got to Chicago in March of 1980. So, and that entire time we lived in Europe. We would go, there were organizations that helped us, but we lived in Vienna. We lived for about 2 to 3 months in Italy, and my parents had to learn how to survive. Didn't speak Italian or any other
Right.
language, didn't speak a word of English at the
Right.
time. And then finally we made it to Chicago, where my parents at the time had a couple of friends that had already come a year or 2 before them, so we stayed with them for a little bit, and then it was just off. Find a job, do whatever you can to survive. I mean, it was 2 young kids to feed,
Right.
no money. I mean, hardly any belongings, and do what you can.
Yeah.
So
I think it's because
Yeah.
see, it's hard for a lot of people to even understand that. Okay. I mean, I can only get a glimpse of it. I mean, I'll never
Yeah.
know how you feel or how your
Yeah.
mom and dad felt.
Right.
I mean, but to go through to do that and that challenge that laid before you, and why do you think they wanted to immigrate?
For a better life, to give us a better life, more opportunity, because back then, I mean, it was a socialist communist country, right, and where the government said they would take care of you and provide,
Right.
history repeating itself here. That's what a lot of people want today, let the government, everyone is equal.
Yeah.
Let the government take care of you. I think what people don't realize is that, when you give people everything, or you say you're going to give people everything, you end up putting everyone in a bad spot.
Right.
You on the one hand, you think you're going to be killing that desire, but people still have the desire to be better, get better, but it does kill some incentive, right? Where people are like, why should I work harder where I'm going to live in the same apartment that someone who doesn't have to do anything will live, or
Right.
have the same things? And, at that time, I mean, we lived, most people in the 70s, when I grew up, when I was there, I mean, a telephone was a luxury, having a car was a luxury. Most people didn't have that. But what it does is everything gets rationed. The store shelves were mostly empty. So this is how the government takes care of you. It
Right.
keeps as much for itself and gives the people very little, and then everyone's miserable, and no one can really move ahead because you're not allowed to. So, but then what happens is human nature is still human nature, and people do want those things. People do need to feed their families,
Right.
and what develops is this kind of underground sort of bartering system where, I work in the meat factory, and you work in a clothing store. Well, I can't just go and buy this clothes. You don't have enough food. So I'm going to, steal some food from my factory, and you're going to take something from your shop, and, we're going to
Right.
barter under the table. And that's how people survived and lived. And it's who you know. Sometimes people would do favors, and there were jobs that paid a little bit more money, obviously, but that's kind of what happened is, you'd get pulled over by the police. The first thing that came to your mind is to bribe them, and so they would let you go. And I mean, it was expected, it was the way of life, and so I think people don't understand what having the government do everything for you, like what it does. It's not. We've seen it. We came away from that, so they wanted to give us a better life. So that was a very long answer to your question, but that's why, just to give us more opportunity.
Yeah. And then what did your parents begin to do once you did move and you got settled as you moved on forward? I mean, what did they do?
So my father, he grew up, during war times. He was born in 1938, so he lived through the war and he was a child. And then he became eventually, he was in the Army. He learned to do electrical work, but then eventually he became a jeweler. So he was working, making jewelry for, the government-owned, stores and things like that. And so that was kind of his trade. So he had that as a trade. My mother worked in the equivalent of a department store, and she managed, I think it was the children's department. She had a role, either a manager or something like that. So in retail. They were not sort of educated in terms of doctors or lawyers, anything like that. So my father pretty quickly found a job actually as a jeweler, not speaking any English, but he didn't need to communicate much because his work was with his hands. So that was very lucky. So
that's all right.
So he got a job doing that relatively quickly, I think. And then my mother, so at the time, I had told you that it was a wave of Russian immigration. And, and I told you that entrepreneurial spirit is still there, regardless how much the government wanted to quash that and make everyone the same. People still had that spirit. And the other thing was that people missed home. We didn't leave, or my parents didn't leave because they didn't like the Russian culture. They loved, the food, the friends, the culture. They just didn't like what the government was doing, right? Those limitations. And so same with all the other people. So my parents, they cried, they really missed home. And so did everyone else who had immigrated. So this community started to form in Chicago. And in fact, Chicago is one of the largest Russian communities even till this day. It was New York, I think LA, and then Chicago. So because there was now this kind of larger Russian community and they wanted to be together, there was nowhere where they could go to restaurants and eat the food that they're used to. They didn't want to eat American food, right? So a restaurant had opened, someone had opened a Russian restaurant, and it was more like a restaurant / nightclub, because part of the Russian culture is that you don't just kind of go to a restaurant and have your dinner and leave. It's usually larger parties, there's a band, there's music, there's dancing, it's a whole production. And you go and you spend the entire evening there. You celebrate birthdays, do parties. So it was that kind of a nightclub almost, but they serve food as well. So she got a job as a waitress at this restaurant because, we needed to make money. And shortly thereafter, she ended up being the best employee, the best waitress, and she became very good friends with the owner at the time. He had then, I think, sold the restaurant and moved to another restaurant that had opened up. And so eventually they decided to actually open up their own restaurant. So my mother, so this is during, years later then, I was probably in my teens at the time, where her and her friend of hers opened up a big restaurant in Chicago. It was 300 people, stage, all of that. And on the weekends, they would be open till 3 a.m. and huge parties. And again, she learned it all herself and how to do the hiring, firing. She didn't do the cooking, but not, she couldn't do it on that kind of level. But my mom loves to cook too. That's where I kind of get it from. But yeah, that's what they did. And then she did that business for a while. And then I think she had that restaurant for 10 to 15 years, something like that, a long time. And I barely ever saw her as a kid. I mean, barely.
Yeah.
She would come home at 6 in the morning, you know, because the restaurant closed on Saturday at 3. She'd have to close up, then drive. I mean, during the week, she'd come home at 10, 11 o'clock at night. So I barely saw. It was, like we were just talking about, very hard, very physically demanding, you know, mentally too. So then after that, my parents, and then my dad, he'd worked where he was working for a few years. And then again, entrepreneurial spirit, he opened his own store. We have an area of downtown Chicago called Jewelers Row. Have a similar thing in New York, where all the jewelry shops. So he got like a little space in a building and started, you know, making jewelry himself, fixing things, and he ran that for a while. And then eventually they got into the pawn shop business. My mom had a few other businesses in between, but they've always pretty much had their own businesses, you know, since the 80s. So, and they're still, you know, that pawn shop is still around. My sister runs it now, and my parents still go all the time, even though they're retired, but, you know, they help out, and they can't sit still.
You know, I think that's a different thing to explain when you talk about, you know, my family have always been storekeepers.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, and I think college and stuff's great. Don't get me wrong. And I think it's all great. But none of my children went to college.
Yeah.
They've all worked. They've done great. They do good.
Yeah.
I mean, have their own companies. And you know, that's sort of, I can remember growing up, I can just remember my dad, I mean, I never remember him saying anything about college. Of course, I mean, he said, can you weld?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
can you build a building?
Yeah.
Can you run electricity?
Right.
Those were things that he stressed on me.
True. I mean, there's
that you've always
can't replace you know, knowledge and skills, and you know, I mean, I don't think college is for everyone. I think especially today, and even though my son, he's in college, he's going to go get a master's degree, but he wants to be an electrical engineer. He needs to do that. But unless you have a special profession, unless you want to be an architect or you want to be a doctor where you really need that training, I mean, all these majors today.
So you don't think that I could just go get like a degree in women's studies, or
you could, but I don't know. Then I'll probably see you working at Starbucks. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking. You know, I mean, so much of it. We have to be honest. So much of this stuff is garbage.
Yeah, it is.
And it's a ripoff of the money.
It's very expensive.
And I think it all hinges on these people who are loaning them the money, okay, and putting people in debt. For all these years. I was reading a while back, and they said if a plumber will actually make more money than a doctor over a period of years, because most plumbers end up owning their own plumbing business.
That's
and
true.
You know, we need doctors. I'm not saying that, but I mean, there's a point there that people forget about that, and the trades are so important now. But you got to have gifted people. Okay, gifted people. To me, I've met a lot of gifted people. There's a thin line between crazy and gifted, okay? It really is, okay? And gifted people have to be managed, okay, by people that can manage sometimes people, because I mean, really, like gifted musicians, okay? I mean, some of them are alcoholics and all these things.
There is a fine line between like insanity and genius are very closely aligned sometimes. Yeah, it's true.
I had a cousin like that. He was a genius, could draw. I mean, he could take a pencil and he was just unreal. But it took him about 3 bottles of Excedrin before he could do that, okay? You know, but he was just so gifted. And I think about that. And I've always been able to manage gifted people. I'm more just cut and dried and like that. But I think there's gifted people have to have people to manage with an entrepreneur spirit. There's great cooks that have to have somebody to supply the kitchen. Okay, so when you think about your challenges personally outside of your parents, you know, as you begin to grow up, and I guess when you left when you're 6 years old, you're not as heavily.
It wasn't. Yeah, I mean, I had to learn to speak. I started first grade when we got here, and I didn't speak a word of English. But when we're at that age, you learn relatively quickly, and we had special classes. I remember in our school where there's a lot of immigrants at the time where, the part of the day you'd spend in a kind of English as a second language class, if you will, where they spent more time with you to get you to, but at that age, you learn so quick. For my parents, it was a lot more difficult because that's their first language. So with them, I still speak Russian with them. I never speak English with them till this day.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because it's just not natural to them. They speak English, but they've got a thick accent. Their grammar isn't that great. They get by and they're perfectly fine. But with their friends and amongst my sister and me, no, we speak Russian with them only. Yeah.
It's really, when you think about a jeweler, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard nobody say there's this American jeweler over here I really want to go get some stuff from. They say there's a Jewish jeweler or a Russian jeweler. It's something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've never seen nobody say, man, there's this great American jewelry store I'd like to visit. They always feel like there's something powerful about that.
Yeah.
That I don't know why.
Yeah.
I mean, just speaking from me.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
which to me, all that's fascinating. So the challenges, you grew up high school.
Then, I finished, we moved around, then went to high school. I became assimilated relatively quickly, although most of my friends, I would say, during those kind of teenage years, they were all immigrants. I don't think I had any, maybe very few, and it just so happened, it wasn't by choice or because I sought it out or anything. It just, again, you're drawn to the people culturally that you're connected with. I mean, it's not bad, not good. It's just what it is as human beings. And so most of my friends in high school, they were like me. Their parents had brought them, 10 years ago or whatever, and they were immigrants. And so some of them I'm still friends with. So two of my best friends I met when I was 14 years old, and we're still friends. And we're in our early 50s.
Right.
So and we're still friends.
Yeah.
And they were, later in life, of course, I got all kinds of friends, not just, from like Russian speaking, but at the time, that's who I was around and that's who lived around me, went to my schools, and that's kind of who I gravitated toward. And, we had more in common and things. And
But, I think that's real. I mean, if I'm somewhere and I see a bunch of guys from McDowell County over in West Virginia. Okay, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I'll gravitate over to them and we're talking about things. We know where we went to high school and what creek you fished in, and you get to talking about stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I think there's totally, just like I'm a little bit of an oddball here. I don't maybe fit in because grew up in the city and all that. And I understand if people, you want to be with people that that make you feel comfortable, that you have more in common with. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's completely natural and.
Well, when you talk about that, okay, and there's some things that, from another point. So when you talk about coming from Chicago and coming to Tazewell, Virginia, the culture, okay, that you've got coming in, and a lot of times, I think what we do sometimes is we think that we don't fit in more than this. I think something is just us, okay?
Yeah,
to me,
probably,
I know that I've had situations I thought I was overthinking it.
Yeah,
okay,
probably.
When I thought if I'd go and say, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, I tend to overthink.
Right, that's what
so,
I mean.
Probably.
We overthink it, and we get to feeling like people are looking at us funny or listening to us funny.
Right.
When sometimes.
And I think at the core, when you really strip it all down and look at, I think we are all the same. I don't think it matters if you grew up in the city or you grew up, in a smaller town. I think underneath it all, we all want the same things. We're, the same things matter, and I don't think, so I think, we're similar in that way.
When you say that, all right, I'm going to ask you this. When you say we all want the same things matter, what do we want?
Well, I mean, I think it's different for maybe individually, but I think as a collective, right? What we all want to be happy, want to see our families happy, or mostly want to be productive human beings, leave a little bit of a mark in this world a positive mark, however big or small it is, right? We love our family, love our friends. I mean, and those basic kind of human things. I don't think it matters whether you grew up in a big city or a small city,
That's
right?
what I
Or a
found
small
too.
town.
I think we're more similar than we are not, and I think I've seen that so much. You know, a big thing people want is peace, okay, and not craziness, but a peace. They want to be able to eat in peace or go home in peace, and be able to do that, okay?
Yeah.
So, and the challenges, I guess, you know, when we talk about it, I know we talked one time before, you and I did some of the challenges of coming to a small town. And this is a small town.
It's very small.
Tazewell's smaller than what you got any idea about.
Yeah.
I mean, when I drive over in West Virginia and I go to places over there, Welch and Pineville, and I mean, they could suck this thing up their exhaust pipe, okay? This little old town here is you know, would fit in the corner of those places. And the people, amount of people, I shared a while back, I had a little convenience store over in Pineville, and there must have been 1,000 cars come through the intersection. You know, I'm thinking, you know, if it done that at Tazewell, it would be a mass exodus.
Right.
Okay, and how fascinating when I look at that and think about, because when you're here in this town, sometimes you think about it being,
it's small.
it's a little town, man.
It's small,
Yeah. When you go to Richlands is big compared to Tazewell, okay?
Right, I guess.
Okay, when you go to
for
Tazewell.
me, it's all small, but yes, I mean, everything's relative, right? So for me, I'm measuring it against Chicago, right?
Yeah, okay.
And I lived in the city. I didn't live in a suburb of Chicago. I lived I'm a city girl, right? But which I love, and I've done that, but I do feel like that for me, like internally, and like, you know, when I think about, you know, future, like I do enjoy a lot of what's here, and like the nature, the beauty. It's the people, the fact that, you know, and every day almost it happens to me where I like compare, and I'm like, well, this would never happen in a big city where, you know, I could see you at the gym, and then 3 days later I could see you at the grocery store, or I see you on Facebook or whatever, or, you know, people, I drive down the street and people are like, I'm in my truck and someone's waving to me, and I'm like, I don't even have time to realize like who it is. Sometimes I'm like, I hope they don't think I'm rude that I didn't wave. It was just happened too fast. But people recognize you. You see the same people all the time, and that would just never happen in a big city, right? I mean, I never. If you go to a store or you go to a restaurant, and then you would see that person shopping for groceries the next day or next week, and that you would never see the same person twice. And so I do like that about it here. That you have people that you know all the time around you, and it's nice.
You know, I think about it. My mother has lived in the same house all of her life. She's in her 80s now. But 6 months, and it had burnt down. And while they was rebuilding, she didn't live there. But she lived all of her life. You know, she lived in the same house and same town. Yeah. And there's people all around. When my father passed away over 3 years ago, I was going to move her to Tazewell and had a nice place, had her stuff. And she said that she didn't really want to. And more I listening to her. You know, I thought it could be taking care of her, but it wasn't. Because she's got people there that go to the post office for her, check on her, go get her milk if she wants it. And I go over to the grocery store, but I mean, she's got friends. She's lived there forever. And there's something so, I guess it's so easy to take that for granted, that small town part of that is so. You know, here's the deal I've always thought about Tazewell. Tazewell's sort of like this. It's never like this, and it's never like this. It's here. Okay, they're never overly prosperous in Tazewell, but you're never down in. There's nobody sleeping under the bridge out here. Okay, so now we do have some people, and we always have, and we got some people that are really prosperous too. Sure. But on the even keel, you know. And for example, I had some people a while back. They talked about how there's some towns around that had, like Grundy, got the law school and these different things, school of pharmacy and all that. And I said, I'm sure glad Tazewell didn't get those things. People said, well, what are you talking about? I said, well, with that comes all these other things. Yeah. With it comes rent going from $500 to $2,500. Right. With that comes the property taxes. With that comes crime. With that comes, I mean, all these different things. And I mean, I don't mind going other places and visiting.
Right.
You know, we went to New York, Janice and I did. We stayed in Times Square. And then we got back on the plane and come back to Tazewell where we didn't have to lock our door. Okay? Where we could leave my keys out. Okay, it was different.
You can't do that in Chicago.
No. So, I mean...
No, you can't do that in New York, can't do that. Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy the quiet, as much as I like the city, but I feel like it's a good base for me, and I could travel whenever I want to go and be part of the big city, and, you know, I can go and do that.
Then come back.
And then come back to my peace and quiet.
I'm the same way. We travel. We camp a lot in the summer.
Yeah.
We stay out 2 weeks and come home. But we go places, bigger places, then we come back.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah, it's
I said,
nice.
I don't mind. I've had, in the past, people say, want to get the kids always talking about, why don't you get a home here or a home there? And I said, you know, we got our vacation home on wheels, and we fill it up with gas and put 50 gallons of water in it and come back to the
But that
house.
just going to kind of circling back to the immigration, I mean, imagine, you know, you're saying you go away for a week and you can't wait to come back, but, you know, my parents and, you know, immigrants, not just them, you know, they leave what they know and the culture that they know and is comforting to them. Language, food, you know, it's everything. And then they move, you know, halfway across the world where not only don't they know many people, they don't speak the language, the food is different. And so it's, it's a big change.
Yeah.
I mean, even now, and my dad, you know, my mom, she cooks. They eat only Russian food at home.
Right.
I mean, they'll go to restaurants, but at home, I mean, it's only.
Right.
My mom doesn't cook anything. You know, it's.
What is
pretty
Russian
much-
food?
Russian, Ukrainian, it's very close. I mean, it's actually not unlike here, Appalachia. Did I say that right?
You're close enough.
Okay,
Yeah.
close enough. It's not unlike here because if you think about where it came from, so Russian is meat and potatoes. It's more heavy food, but when you think about why, it's because, you know, back then, right, years and years and years and years ago, and, you know, it's a much older culture, right, than America. People didn't have electricity, you had to preserve things, right? So there's a lot of fermented food. So Russians, Ukrainians, they ferment like everything. Watermelon, cabbage, tomatoes, great. My mom will do all those things. So a lot of like fermented foods because they can keep a long time. They're cheap, right? And when you couldn't, and also like you can get tomatoes in the winter, for example, right? Everything's, you know, we think organic here, organic here. There's no concept of that in Europe. Everything's organic by default because we don't ruin the things. And then have to, you know, charge you more to call it organic.
Right.
You just let it be natural, right? Well, but what does that mean? That means you can't get great tomatoes, you know, in the winter, et cetera. But so they would have to pickle things, ferment, you know, so they would do that with all this. So you get a lot of those kinds of foods, meat, stews, potatoes, and a lot of, I think almost every culture, if you really think about Asian culture, you know, Indian, Italian, we all have our own version of like dumplings, let's say. You know, there's ravioli and things like that. In Italy, there's all kinds of dumplings, like in the Chinese and Asian cultures, while in Russia and Ukraine, there's all kinds of, you know, where you take dough, you know, roll it out, and then you stuff it with different things. So there's these things called pelmeni, which are smaller ones, and they usually have meat, pork, or beef. Then there's something called vareniki, which are like half moon shape. Those can be, they fill them with cabbage, they fill them with potatoes, they fill them, they make them sweet. You can put fruits. They do cherry ones or like a cottage cheese type. And so, you know, you can freeze them, and then you just plop them in hot water. It takes 5 minutes, and you're done. So a lot of that kind of food. But it's just kind of very hearty, and it had to be food that I think, when you think of the roots of where it comes from, it had to be cheap. You had to use the entire animal. So, like, we eat tongue.
Right.
You know, cow tongue. Gets eaten. Like you eat almost every part of, you know, we make pate out of liver and things like that. So when you think about why, if you really go back to the roots of why do you do that, because food is scarce, you have a big family to feed, you want to use the entire animal, so you use the parts, and then you can ferment and do all those kinds of things with whatever you can. So that's what it is, a lot of stuff like that. Like we literally, my mom, till this day, will go to the store, buy cow tongue. Yeah, they saw, you can't really get it here, I'm surprised, but like you could get it in stores. And then, you know, she boils it, she does different things with it, and then you slice it up or you eat it like deli meat almost. Like, yeah, you used up everything because you had to you have to stretch it out to feed your family.
Yeah, you know,
So,
and that's, I guess, you know, and I've watched documentaries on how wasteful we are as a country. I mean, so much waste. You know, I was watching, I watch a lot of documentaries. I get most of my education from YouTube, but I watched how they would, over in India, how they would go and outside of these restaurants, like similar to Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they would gather the garbage and get all the chicken bones. Then they would take those chicken bones back and they would boil them and bread them, you know, and then they called it, I can't remember what they called it, but then they would sell it back in the poor neighborhoods. These people would sell it. They would take it back and just sell it.
Yeah, in other cultures, it's not uncommon to eat almost every part of the animal.
Yeah.
You know, and think about like pig's feet and chicken feet, like in other cultures, you know, you eat that.
Yeah.
But
you know, and it's fascinating when you think about it. All right, let me ask you this. So when we're talking about, and I know I'm not just dwelling on Russia and the Ukraine, okay?
No,
But I mean, I don't get to talk to anybody who really knows anything, okay? I mean, what is there about what you see from the point you're at now that maybe breaks your heart, that you see that's going on in Russia and into Ukraine from your point of view, from your family and that culture and that point of view? Is there anything that bothers you?
I mean, I try to stay away from that, and I don't pay too much attention to it, but I just think like a lot of, it's terrible what's happening, obviously. It's tragedy, you know, a lot of death, unnecessary, all of that. Any kind of war, it's always terrible. So that's just a baseline. But I think what a lot of people here maybe don't understand, because it doesn't get reported on, is that it's what I was saying before. Like, we consider, so the town where I was born and lived for the first part of my life, it's called Donetsk. It's actually in the heart of the conflict because it's closer to Russia, right? And like people who live there, like it's a whole cultural and language issue as well, as that those people, or a lot of people, they consider themselves more Russian than they do Ukrainian. You know, now it's been divided into its own neat countries and all of that, but I think they've been fighting amongst themselves for a long time too, right? Wanting to secede and all of that. So I think it's more complicated than people here realize that, oh, yes, Putin just came in and yes, that's all. I'm not saying I'm on his side or anything like that, but I think it's a lot more complicated than I think what people realize because of the culture, right? Whereas like, yes, you maybe technically now live in Ukraine and, you know, you're forced to speak Ukrainian and you're forced to send your kids to, but you're like, wait, but I'm like Russian. My culture is more, you know, Russia. And so I think that's hard.
That makes sense.
You know?
It really does. And see, what happens is, too, not many people get the point of view, okay? And I know it's a lot more complicated when I see it. Now, what does vex me is the crooks in the middle of all of it and the money, okay? Because I feel like there's so many people doing without that shouldn't be doing without. And but seeing it from that point of view, I mean, it can be heartbreaking. I guess there's things that you know, I look back on things just in our country and it's heartbreaking. When I read about the Civil War, it breaks my heart. Okay, when I think of the cruelty of people, you know, neighbor, that when I think about that, and it's went on since the beginning of time, but it's still it's heartbreaking when you think about those things.
I mean, people can be amazing and incredible, and there's plenty of those kind of people, and then people can be very cruel and horrible. I mean, that's just human nature, right? And I think it's every culture, it's everywhere. Big city, small, any culture, any national, you know, I think it's human nature that some people are evil, terrible people, and some people are That's why, my view is you take each person for who they are. You can't judge them just because they come from somewhere or, I look at the behaviors.
Right.
I don't care how much money you have, where you come from, who you are. I look at what you do.
Yeah.
And then I make my decision of,
I
whether
often-
I like you or not.
I agree. I found, you ever see people, and I've shared this before, you ever see somebody you like and you're not sure why you like them, but you see somebody else you think's a donkey and you don't know why you think they're a donkey. And this is my reasoning, okay? And I'm very simple about this. When I see somebody that smiles, I think, man, they're all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I've had friends that were really good people, but their face was sort of made in a downward direction. You know what I mean? It wasn't that they were just bad, but they just saying, you would see them, you think, whew, but it's something in the whole world's like that. It seems to me like that. If you see somebody that you can't even speak the language, okay, if you see them smile, man, it just makes a difference.
Yeah.
I think it does to me, I think that, and if they brag on my children, if they do that, I think they're the smartest person. I say, that is really a genius, if they brag on your kids.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think about that a lot. I don't know. I look at people's lives, and I try to be really long-suffering, too, and to be a little patient. Now, I'm not if you're hitting me in the nose, but you can say, because people have bad days.
Oh, of course.
Okay?
Yes,
and they'll say things they don't really mean.
Of course.
They get all
and I think, and no one, and I look at it as, we got long lives, or maybe they're short, I don't know, but it's a spectrum, and it's sometimes, and I don't think anyone is all good or all bad. I think we're all a mix. We've all, no matter what we say, no matter what we do, we've all done bad. We've all, and some of us have also done good, and to me, at the end of the day, when you look back at your life, if I can say I've done more good than I've done bad, and I've, helped at least some people in any small way that I can, then that's a success, right? But to say that we're all perfect and, you're, this way and you're that way, and I think we're all a mix. No, it's not black and white, and you have to take a look at the totality of a person's life, really,
Well, let me ask you this. When we think about people, that are extremely wealthy and old, but seems still to be grabbing them with both hands. I wonder about them sometimes, trying to hold on to power and do things. And I wonder, because I like to study people. I study people that won't forgive. I like to study them, but when I see greedy people, I'm a little fascinated by it. I see them and I'm thinking, there you are, 80 years old, and you're still grabbing with both hands, and you're still, I wonder about that.
Like, why are you doing that, right? Is it because you want to leave that to your kids and you want to leave them more? But I don't know. Or is it just because your own personal gives you power? And,
I think it's the power. I think people sometimes, if they move out of a circle of power, that they really have no identity left in.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's tap on this a little bit when we talk about leaving things to your kids. I don't want to leave much for my kids, okay? Several years ago, I got everything I got for my kids. I'm just telling you me, okay? I'm not writing a book on it and going on Oprah. But I got them together, gave them everything I had.
Okay.
And I said, because your mama and I are not going to leave anything. We're going to spend all of our money.
Good.
Okay? We're going to do that. Because I've never seen nothing ruin kids more than inheritance.
No, I agree with
that. Than that, and never seen them fight over anything more than that. And you've heard them. You come to, because there's no struggle, no strength.
Right.
Okay?
So you were saying you gave them things like while you're still alive.
Property. I gave them the house I live in.
I kind of agree with that philosophy. My parents actually recently did something like that too. Like I needed some help, and they sat down and they're like, well, why should we wait until after we've passed?
Right.
Like, if you need it now, if you have a situation, you need help today.
Right.
Why don't I just do it today, then wait, I don't know when I'm going to, maybe it's in 5 years, maybe it's in 10 years. But if you need help now, why not? And that means you don't get anything maybe at the end, but why don't I help you while I can when you need it? And I think that's a good perspective. There's obviously people who have, wealth and they could never give it all, but those are a very small number. I think for the general, I mean, that's a good way to look at it, you know. And you should enjoy, you've worked hard all your life, like, you can't take it with you. Why not enjoy your life and spend it, and, you know, your kids are good. I mean, that's a good way to look at it.
And your biggest fear is you want your children to be able to take care of themselves, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I've always wanted my kids to know, and I feel confident now, and all my children can take care of themselves. They're survivors. They can handle themselves and do those things. But I don't know, we just come to that thought several years ago, and I said, you know, we're gonna make sure we're going to give them the house I live in. I give to my son and his wife, and I told him, deeded it to him, and I said, now here, you keep the grass cut. Okay, you know what I mean? They take care of everything, but I mean, I want to make sure that they're okay. But I've seen so many issues over those things that are left.
Yeah.
You know, and I just that's so heartbreaking, because then you get hard feelings and you get this. And it's over free stuff.
Yeah, I
People
know.
have
What
more
do you
trouble.
Yeah, what do you find? And then you're not there to explain it, you know, they have to interpret and think, what did you think, and what were your intentions, when you can kind of just lay it all out there while you can, and why not? And you get to see them enjoy it maybe too, you know?
Yeah.
So
that's
you know,
that's
versus you're gone and you don't know.
You know,
what
we think
happened.
about every year, we keep a boat at the lake. We keep a boat down at the lake, which is very expensive for us in our budget, okay?
Yeah.
And then every year we say, you know, we're not going to keep that boat there anymore. We could take that money that we're paying for the dock and spend it somewhere else. Then we get to thinking about the kids enjoy it.
Yeah.
So we take our money that we have now, spend it there.
Yeah.
Now, when we die, they can work it out on their own, okay?
Right.
They can, if they want to keep it, they can keep it, or they can load it up on the trailer and bring it home.
Right.
But I mean, we look at that stuff and think about it. They enjoy it. I know this past year, at the end of the season, we said, hey, we're not going to get the dock. We're not going to get the boat slip next year. We're just not going to do it. Then we gradually, my wife and I started saying, well, you know, it's not that much, and we can do this, and let's just do this over. Let's cut back a little bit over here, and we'll do this. Well, they enjoy it. Is the last word we said. Once she said that, I knew we were in trouble.
Right.
You know, and do that. So your son is going to college.
He's almost done. He's graduating in May.
Right.
So he's a physics major for his undergraduate degree, but he recently decided, or not decided, but he developed a passion for electrical engineering. So he now has applied to several programs to get his master's in electrical engineering.
Oh, that's good.
I found out he got accepted to UCLA's program, which was one of his top choices. So I'm very happy about that. And but he's waiting to hear on the rest. He hasn't heard yet. But,
That's good.
But it's a big load off his little shoulders, or not little. They're not little anymore. He's 22. Yeah, I'm very proud of him.
That is really good.
I'm very, very proud of him. He's super smart, but a good heart, just a good, he never gave me any trouble growing up. I mean, he's just an ideal kid, and grew up into a great young man now, and hopefully with a bright future. And he's, you know, but like, he's one of those that does need the college, because he needs to learn those skills. You have to, but hopefully he'll, you know, but he's passionate about it, which is what I love, is that he's passionate about it. And it's so important to do something, I think, that you're passionate about, because he's going to be working a lot. You know, most people spend most of their day working, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice if you can also enjoy it and love it and have a passion for it. So I'm really glad that he's done that. So
You know, I've got one daughter that trains horses. She got 45 race horses.
Wow.
And her and her husband work extremely hard. I'm talking about in the cold, you know, 10 below.
Yeah.
They're out there jogging horses, scrape the snow off the track, driving hours and hours, racing every day and doing all these things. And time and time again, I've said, you know, you should just get a job at Walmart, okay? You know, and I all the time, and her mom and I keep telling her, you can't do what you do, you can't do it. And she goes, they go. And I think, gee whiz. And then, so her and I were riding home the other day. And I was in Ohio, we was riding, and she started talking. I said, you know, it's a hard thing what you do. She said, well, Dad, I just love a horse.
Yeah, she
You know what I
enjoys
mean?
it,
She's
yeah.
talking about how much she loves a horse. She said, I find horses that I really like, and
Yeah.
I enjoy. Now, some I don't. She said some are just rejects, and they're just passing through.
Right.
But there's some that really get my heart.
Yeah.
And she said, I like them. And
But
I
I
think
mean-
I said, well, if you're enjoying
Well,
it.
that
you
I
know.
think that's the key. You know, I think it's so important. I think it's a gift because I think the majority of people spend their lives working and I think it goes back to how we started the conversation about finding good help.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these people just treat it as a job. I have this job today. If I don't have this today, I'll have something else tomorrow. It doesn't matter who they work for, what they do. It's a way to get a paycheck.
Right.
And so when your attitude is a way to get a paycheck, of course you're not going to put in the effort
Right.
and be passionate and all of that. So I think, and that's what most people go through life like that. It's a job, it pays the bills, they do it, they move on.
Yeah.
But I think it's rare and it's beautiful when people can love and do love what they do
Right.
and get a chance to, spend their time
Right.
doing what they love. I think it's great when you can find that.
Yeah,
so.
I do too. I think about it a lot. You know, how they enjoy what you're doing. You know, there's seasons and times, and life has so many chapters. Okay,
Yeah.
that we go through, that the page is turned,
Yeah.
and every time it changes is not a failure. You know, it's easy sometimes to think because this chapter's turned in my life that it's a failure when it's not always a
Yeah,
failure.
no,
It's
I mean, and
not.
people go through hard times, and sometimes it's hard when you're going through it, but you learn from it. It makes you stronger. It gives you a different perspective. Maybe you meet different people that you never would have met.
Right.
So I think sometimes life throws challenges at you, because it's meant to teach you something,
yeah.
so.
You know, the scary thing for me I see out there, when I think about my grandsons, and I think about, I've got 3 grandsons. Okay, when I think about them I'm always afraid, and I've got one getting ready, that's going to college. He's old enough now, he's graduating this year, going to college. It scares me to death that he'll wind up at a college with a bunch of ding-dong teachers, okay, that are just rascals, okay, that do nothing but indoctrinate him in this mess. And this is the way I feel. We don't always have to agree, okay? I mean, I'm all right with stuff.
I'm a straight shooter.
I'm easy with stuff,
I am.
okay? I don't
Don't
mind.
worry,
But I get to thinking about that, and it worries me. Then I also get afraid, of course, but he's pretty sharp. Okay, the grandson getting ready to graduate is pretty sharp. Okay, then I get to thinking about women out there, that this world is different nowadays. It's different. I was sharing this with my daughter the other day. I was talking to her about it. I said, I was in love at least 10 times before I was in the 7th grade. Okay, you know what I mean? It was,
Okay.
I bought rings at the store and give them to girls. I mean, I was in love. And they wrote on there, "Do you love me?
Right.
Check this mark."
Right.
And I would check the mark.
Yeah.
But I think about nowadays, the culture seems so much different. And she explained some of it to me. But how she says this, okay, that nowadays girls and boys can be friends. Okay, when I didn't have girlfriends unless
Right.
it was a girlfriend.
Right.
Okay, and she explained all this to me.
Yeah.
She went over this with
Right,
me.
right.
She tried to educate me a little bit on it, and I said, it still don't make no sense to me. But I worry about them. I worry about them going on. I worry about them finding love. I worry about them raising a family. And I would like to. The only reason I go to the Y is I like to be around to see these kids grow, see them have great grandbabies. I like to see that, okay?
Yeah.
If not for that, I'd stay home and sit on the couch.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just fine, all right? I don't have no aspiration
Yeah.
for the Olympics. But I think about that, and I worry about that nowadays, and I see it. I don't know.
I think today, and I don't like it either, I'm more old school, I suppose, is that in our desire to kind of say that there's no differences between anyone, everyone's the same, they're also saying that men and women are the same. There's no difference, whatever a man can do, a woman can do, and all this other stuff. And while generally speaking, of course, when it comes to your rights, should we all have the same
Right.
rights? Of course
Of
we
course,
should. No
yes.
one's debating that. But I like the differences between men and women.
Yeah.
I think there's a tendency today to emasculate men in order to kind of make the women feel better. And I don't think that that is good at all. I don't think it helps us raise men who can be strong and take care of women. I mean, and I like that. You know, I don't want to be stronger than a man.
Right.
You know, I don't go to the gym and
Right.
I'm going to take any pleasure
Right.
from, you know, bench pressing more than a man can. I mean, I don't want that, right? I go just to be healthy and all of that. But and that's not really an internal kind of thing. But I think that, you know, men and women should be women, and I like those roles.
Right.
And I think that there has to be a polarity. Otherwise, you know,
Don't make
like,
no sense.
where's the attraction,
Yeah,
right?
It don't
you
make
know?
no sense. I agree, and I think you know, I do see some things changing in the atmosphere a little bit, okay? I see a move of men starting to come. I do see some things changing, and because I was extremely worried at one point. But I do see something a little bit. I see some things starting to change because people, just like you've said, are actually saying that, okay, instead of seeing it being afraid to say it. And there's so much craziness, okay, but this is the thing I think, though. I don't believe there is crazy people out there, but there's more sane than there are crazy. But one thing about crazy people, but they're not doing as much, lazy people have more babies than working people, okay, because they don't care. They just pop them out, okay? They're just, you know.
They got more time.
They're just turning out to have babies, you know what I mean? You're thinking, are they pregnant again?
Yeah.
And here you got somebody out here working 2 jobs that's thinking about, can we afford to have another kid?
Yeah.
Okay, so we know that goes on. But I think also what happens is some of these crazies are not reproducing, you know, because there's just crazy stuff going on. But I mean, I watch them and stuff, and I'm thinking they're calling right wrong and wrong right, and they're just acting like there is no difference between a man and a woman, and it's I don't know, man, and I run into that, and I'm very solid. Now I don't like to hurt people's feelings unless you come to me and you face me and you say, hey, this is what I am, you know, because I faced that one time. A guy began to tell me what I had to refer to him as. I said, no, I don't believe so. I said, I don't mind if you want to call yourself. You can call yourself a cook stove, and we'll put wood in you and light it if you want to. But I'm not going to go with you on this respect.
Yeah.
But I think the world, and we see things that are crazy now. We didn't get used to see it. We had to wait on the paper.
With social media now and everyone's life is out for public display, which I don't think is great either. But I think that yeah, you know, I mean, I want a man to open the door for me. Now, can I open my own door? Of course I can. I can do everything for myself. But if I can do everything for myself, then I don't need any other people at all. And that's a very sad way to live.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not about, can I do this, or am I capable, or I don't need a man to do this. Yes, I do want the man to do this. And I will do certain things for a man that I don't think a man should do. Right? And, you know, that's where the attraction is, and that's how you become good partners, right? You do things for each other that the other person maybe doesn't do as well. Like, I don't need the man to, you know, wash the dishes or whatever. I mean, it's great if he does. I mean, I appreciate it, but and, you know, but I'm probably not going to be fixing, you know, the roof. Now, I can, and if I'm a woman who enjoys to do that, great, you know, do that. But I just think when we put people in these boxes and then we just now say, look, everyone's the same, we can all, and it's like, okay, what's the point, you know?
I don't know. I get to thinking about that stuff, and I watch it, and I wonder about it. And
I don't like it.
I do not like it at all, and I just think, and we always have stuff around us and things that goes on, and everybody has crazy people in their family. There's always some people in there that are a little bit, and it's all right. You know, my cousin and I talk a lot. We're like brothers, and we talk about every day. And we talk about people sometimes. But we feel like we can because it's me and him and his family.
Yeah.
And we can laugh at them about how crazy we think they are. And I'm confident probably there's somebody laughing at us saying how crazy we are at the same time.
Sure.
But the thing about it, I tell them all the time, I said, it's America. I said, we can do it if we want to. And you can be a milk cow if you want to. It's all right with me.
Yeah, I don't care.
But I mean, you know, as long as it doesn't infringe on me. Okay?
Exactly.
And
I agree.
You know, as long as you don't want to tie your milk cow in my yard, all right? Then it all starts to change. And well, let me ask you this, and I know we went a long time, and I really appreciate you. You're
I'm good. I can talk.
You're a blessing, all right? But all right, when we talk about safety,
Okay.
when you travel. I mean,
You mean travel like on an airplane, like,
when you
or
go
here?
places, and you're going to Chicago or you're going somewhere, or you're going.
Yeah.
I mean, do you ever not feel safe, or do you? Are you pretty
really
confident?
Don't.
Uh-huh.
Honestly, I don't think I ever really safe like someone's going to do something to
right.
me. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. I mean, here I feel like it's pretty safe. Like
Right.
here in a small town, like I don't think there's
Right.
that. I feel safe here. And I'd say when I'm traveling, like through an airport or something, no, I don't. I can't say no.
I think that's confidence too. You know what I mean? And knowing your surroundings.
Yeah.
You know, my wife always tells my daughters, walk with confidence when you're in the parking lot.
Sure, yeah.
Walk like you know where you're going.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and do
yeah.
those things, and
Yeah.
because you think about that a lot. You know, I've gotten out of where I used to. Of course, I carry a gun a lot, but I used to keep it where I could get it, but I moved it. Like in the camper, I used to keep it up front where I could grab it in a moment.
Yeah.
But I got to thinking about shooting somebody and how that would be so final. And you know, I got thinking.
Yeah.
Now I moved my mace. I keep mace up there because I don't think. If I'm in a 10,000-pound vehicle,
Yeah.
I don't believe you're going to do much to me, and especially if you can't see. I may run over you because
Right.
I don't feel bad about running over you because you have a chance of living. But you know, there's times that you're thinking about safety, and I do think about it a lot. Now, not a whole lot. I don't dwell on it all the time, but I think about protecting the people with me.
Yeah.
You know, I think about watching out for them, making sure they're okay. That I look at the room when I go in, and you know, and I'm not.
You're
Sitting
supposed
there,
you're supposed to, I think, like find where the exits are, like the minute you walk in the room. Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime I sit where I don't put, if I have my back to the door, my wife gets surprised.
Right.
She says, "Why are you sitting there? You never sit
Right.
there, you know." But it's just the way we do
Yeah.
stuff. We think
Yeah.
about safety and taking care of things and protecting people and being around them. I think about it
Right.
because I thought about that the other day, where those people came in the church and all those things they'd done in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you know, if I'd have been sitting there at the back door, I would have jacked somebody's jaw. Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, sure I could get out of it. I get a lawyer and get out of it, but you wouldn't come in there and wreak havoc, making the children cry, and all these things that went on. That wouldn't happen in Tazewell, Virginia. Okay,
Right.
It just wouldn't happen here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my.
Well, I think it also goes maybe a little bit towards what we were just talking about too, about men not being men, you know, where, yeah, they might go and scream at a preacher or do a protest or something, but yet they wouldn't, you know, protect someone that they're with and get in a fight and all that, and,
Right.
you know, because they're not being men.
Right.
You know, they're afraid or they don't want to hurt someone or, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
it
you
is,
would have to
but-
say, "I'm going to get on the keyboard later and get you told." You know what I mean? It wouldn't be like. I don't know. I think about this thing. I'm telling you, we have covered more topics.
Okay, have we?
I don't think that we have absolutely went by the notes at all. I think we
Okay.
have, you know, I don't know, but I wanted to sit down with you because when I first talked to you, I thought you were very interesting, and I knew you had a point of view that you know
Yeah.
that only you could have. You know, because when we talk about the Ukraine and we talk about the Soviet Union,
Yeah.
you know, there's so much that, you know, we know what we see. We sit here and watch on the news.
Yeah.
And we see things along, and then we get told what's really going on. We don't get a chance to think about it.
Yeah.
You know, we don't get a chance to think about that thing.
No, it's
Gee
interesting,
whiz.
and yeah, it's nice. It kind of being here, I think, brings me back a little bit to my, you know, to there, because some of my, I don't have too many memories. You know, I left when I was early, but you know, like my grandmother had family, and they lived out in the country, and at this, you know, I was born in 1973, and you know, at that time, so like say late, you know, 80s, when she would take us for the summer, and you know, her family, like, they lived out, you know, in the country, and there was no plumbing, there was no electricity.
Right.
And this is like, even here in the 70s, you
Right,
had that, right, in small towns.
Right.
You'd have running water. But, you know, I went to the bathroom in an outhouse. I slept above one of those, like, stoves, like, that you put wood on, you
Right.
know. There were chickens and pigs, and we'd go out into the forest and, you know, forage for mushrooms, and those are actually some of my fondest memories. That's probably
Yeah.
why I like it here, even though you look at me and you don't think I, maybe belong here or fit in, but it actually, like, it feeds my soul a little bit, because those are some of the memories that I enjoy and that I have.
And I appreciate that. And you know what I mean? Because it shows something about the heritage and what we have in the mountains. And, I'm all for the mountains, okay? And I've traveled a lot, done a lot of work in England, San Salvador. In England, I really needed an interpreter, though, because they couldn't understand a word I was saying, okay?
Well, sometimes I feel like that, here, because I'm like, what? Your accent's a little thick, but.
It was no trouble to tell where I'm from.
Yeah.
And, it's just the way it is. But anyway, I do appreciate you.
Well,
thank you so
thank
much.
you for having me. It was fun.
Carter has moved up to 15 pounds.
Has he moved up? Well, I've moved up, but I'm still at the 12s most of my exercises. But I'm glad he has surpassed me, as he should. As he should, even at 13, to surpass me. That is good. I hope he keeps surpassing me.
I gave him a lot of grief over that. And I said, that little skinny lady's got your stuff again. You get so mad. I can't believe she keeps getting mine.
That's so funny.
I told him, I said, I'm going to have a talk with her about that.
Right.
I told him, I said, we'll get you some pink weights.
Yeah.
And he gets real mad. We challenge each other's masculinity. Say a lot of bad words to each other.
Yeah.
We really do.
It's good that he comes, though, and does it. It's a good,
really is.
Habit to get into. I think
well,
it's good.
spending time together for him to be able to spend time with his grandfather. And
I think it's
for
great.
me to pick him up and us to spend time together, and I don't take it for granted. I don't take it lightly, because and I said this 1,000 times, you don't know memories are memories when you're making them. You think it's just another day.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been interviewing people since 1992.
Wow.
Okay. I interviewed my grandfather, which was his great-great-grandfather, in 92, and I had a little studio that was 8 foot wide and 12 foot long. And me and him sit there, and I interviewed him and talked to him several times. We just sat and talked about his life growing up, and that is history.
Yeah.
Okay? And I try to tell I interviewed my daughter. She just about interviewed me the other day, because she's totally different human. But I told her we'll make history today, and you'll know that later on. But when we talk about growing up and talk about life and talk about those things, you just don't think about it.
Right.
And I think we miss it. So many good things like that.
People don't talk enough today. It's all in their phones. And watching strangers they're never going to meet, instead of talking to their friend or family who they're 2 feet away from,
You can have 6 people, and you look over on the couch, and I've had 4 and 5 on the phone at the same time. And
or you go out to dinner or wherever, and everyone's like, "Why are you even together?
Yeah.
Why are you even together?"
I don't, and and I'm on my phone.
No,
okay?
I mean, of course,
still
we all are.
Still, though, there's got to be times that we.
Of course,
there's got to be times we put it down.
Disconnect. There's not a lot of. I mean, it's positive, but a lot of it's not that positive.
Yeah. Have you fooled with AI any?
Oh yeah, I use ChatGPT daily.
Is it not a hoot? I mean, I use it. I use it a lot.
Well, it's actually, it takes us. It's a good segue, because we're talking about the phones and being disconnected. What's interesting, I have found, as the more I use ChatGPT, and I use it mostly for work, and I could completely see how in a few years. And when I even see glimpses of it now, and it amazes me, is that how people are going to replace real relationships with these bots and the ChatGPT. Because when I open mine up, all of my searches, are in like the same, or I have different folders. But then when I go back to something later, it remembers how you like things answered, because you basically talk to it, right? And so what's happened, number one, and I work from home, so I'm alone all day long. Like I sit in my apartment all day by myself, and so it kind of gives you like somebody to bounce idea. It almost becomes like an entity and a person, right? So but for work, I think that's okay. But I think what's worse is that people are going to start replacing like real people with that, because why? It learns what you want. It talks to me the way I want to be talked to. It gives me compliments. It's insightful and can anticipate how I want things answered. And I'm thinking, wow, like, there's people who don't give me this. Right? There's people who say, like, my husband, my boyfriend, doesn't do that. He doesn't care about what I want or need. And I'm thinking, like, pretty soon, they're going to crave, what they're getting from a computer that no human could ever live up to. And it's going to start, I mean, it's not a good thing.
Right.
It's a bad thing, but I could see that, like, literally where people are going to want to spend time talking to a computer screen than to a real human being, because they're getting back, there's no arguments, you're getting compliments. It's like, right?
Yeah, but I
think about it all the time.
We have, they talk about the issues that kids have got into with this.
Yeah.
Where they become, that bot become their best friend. And when they couldn't, when they were cut off from it, I mean, suicide. And the things that they went through coming from that, stemming back from that. And the biggest thing I like is I'll take pictures of people and put them in a wedding dress or something like that. I'm exploring that part of it.
Yeah.
We get in these photo battles all day with each other, okay? It's then Carter keeps telling me he's going to take it away from me, because we had a picture of my daughter-in-law and my daughters and my mom and my wife and all of us and some friends. We took a picture of, I guess, maybe 10 years ago. Anyway, they were standing in front of a fireplace, all of them standing there with their leg out. You know how you stand to look good, and they're all standing there. But last night I said, I put it over in ChatGPT. I said, put everybody in a wedding dress, okay? So it did, and I loved it. I sent it all to them, and they
incredible,
they want to blackball me. But I mean, it really, for a lot of stuff I do, especially graphics. I mean, I use it for a lot of graphics for television. Man,
wow.
We build all of our graphics in it now.
Oh, really?
We just go in.
I don't use that piece of it. I use it mostly to research and write things for me, answer questions, things like that, like for work-related stuff usually. I don't use it in my personal life really, but I mainly use it at work. But it's making me so much more efficient. That is, hands down for sure. Yeah. Makes you way more, like you could do so much more with having it as a tool.
I've got a presentation I've got to do for a board of directors that I'm on, and I'm going to work with that, in that respect, and try to put it together. But I like it. They'll ask me a question, 1, 2, or 3, what do you want to do, But I just figured out after that you could create those folders for the project.
You can. That's what I have. That's what I'm talking about. And so, I have like 4 or 5 different projects, and I may be days I have to go back and do something else for the same project. But what's great, it has all the history. It remembers what you've done before. So it's not like you're starting from zero, and then it starts to give you answers more because a lot of times when it gives you an answer, you have to work with it. You have to ask it, follow, this isn't work related, where I have to say, no, this isn't what I meant. I need this, or let's think about it this way, and then it goes back and it redoes something. So then it's learning what you want, how you think. And
I was trying to work on I ripped the audio off some of my interviews, and I wanted to do a text file. Okay. But it wouldn't do it.
Really?
It said it didn't have a text to a speech to text.
To convert it, you mean?
Couldn't do it. I could put it in something else and convert it, and I'd pay for another. There was other things out there.
The way I usually do it is if I have something recorded, I will get it transcribed.
Right.
And then I just copy it over into ChatGPT.
I wanted it to transcribe it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and when I tried to get to transcribe it,
got it.
Because I kept putting it in, telling it to do it, and it said, okay, and asked me some questions, and I said, hey, you're not doing it.
Right.
It said, you're absolutely right. You know what I mean? It said, I'm not doing it, and this is why.
Yeah.
And it went, but there's other programs to do it, because what I want to do is take some of these interviews and transcribe them.
Okay.
Okay, and I think it'd be really neat to have them even in a book form.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and dress them up and have something like, I think it's just, I don't know, I keep looking at those history and things that'll outlive me.
Yeah,
That's what
right.
I'm always looking for.
Right.
Well, all right.
Well, thank you
I'm
so
telling you, I
much.
appreciate you. You're a blessing.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you for having me.
I enjoy it. And I love talking to people, sitting down.